Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with another video for Weekly Shonen Jump Thursdays. So basically, right, again, Weekly Shonen Jump Thursdays is just going to be me talking about all of the Weekly Shonen Jump manga that I'm currently reading. So that includes Robot Laser Beam, Dr. Stone, Boku no Hero, One Piece, all that good stuff. So look out for that content every Thursday. Also remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to be notified for more content. Find me on Twitter. Like I said, I'm always on Twitter. I'm always grinding. I'm always tweeting. I'm always responding to tweets. So find me on Twitter. And Facebook, I'm trying to sort of set up Facebook just as a place where, you can find me making sort of little comments in terms of like how I feel about a chapter that's recently come out, an anime that I just recently watched, things like that, or a comic book that I just read before I make the actual video. So you can get a sense of how I'm feeling about it before the full-length video comes out. So this chapter review is going to be on Shokugeki no Soma 225. And in my last video, 224, I just sort of talked about some things that I kind of disliked, some things that I did appreciate about what the chapter did. I actually had a really good discussion in the comment section in that last video with one of my viewers. And it's great. He changed my mind about a couple of things, but there was one thing that I was just kind of sort of stuck with. And I think I'm going to get into that today in this video because this chapter is very much so Mimisaka centric. So we're going to get into that, sort of some of the reasons as to why I feel like the mangaka's kind of dropped the ball a little bit in terms of how he's developing this Mimisaka, the character, and what I feel like could have happened but didn't to lead to that dropping of the ball. So before I get into Mimisaka and his character development and all of those things, just wanted to talk a little bit about the Elite 10 5th seat Saito. And this is not necessarily an analysis kind of point. This is just like sort of my own kind of feelings about him at just right now. He's kind of not boring, but it's kind of an odd kind of like character that doesn't necessarily pop in the way that other characters, sort of like a Kuga and a Rindo, Tsukasa, Aizan, right? Like characters like those who like really pop, who've gotten a little bit, not necessarily development, but just have like a very like clear personalities that are interesting, unique, funny. Like they are rounded out in certain ways, right? In terms of sort of like their gimmicks, what they can do, why they are the Elite 10, stuff like that. And this guy Saito just kind of bores me. Like he just kind of bores me to tears. Like he's just kind of a character that's like, okay, like I have this Bushido way, and I'm like, this is the wrong manga for that code. Like unless it clearly shows in his cooking. And to me, it doesn't really show in his cooking, right? Like the fact that he's sort of like talking to Mimisaka and trying to maintain his Bushido way by like giving Mimisaka his cutting knife, like that doesn't really have anything to do with his cooking necessarily, so much as it has to do with his character, which is like whatever. Like you're honorable, but there's a lot of honor that's like thrown around in this manga and other shonen manga, so it's not really a trait that's particularly eye-popping or anything like that. But like I said, in my other video in the comment section, talking with this other viewer, like maybe this character will be developed, in later chapters and things of that nature. Maybe we'll see that. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to that development. But for now, like his character's kind of, I'm not particularly interested in his character. I don't really want to know too much about his Bushido code right now or anything like that. I want to see like his cooking, and I want to see how his cooking reflects his personality and reflects his belief systems and things of that nature, right? So that kind of gets me into Mimisaka. So the problem that I have with Mimisaka generally isn't so much his traceability, right? And I think like the thing about the traceability is that like it's not so much that like it's bad that he's able to use it, or that it's not useful in this particular arc, right? Like, of course it's useful for this particular arc, because the Regiment de Cuisine is clearly all about teamwork, right? Otherwise, if it was just one-on-ones, like they were saying, like, the individual talents of the Elite 10, particularly the first seat, right? The Tsukasa, Rindo, even Saito, right? Like, these characters, like, they are very good. at what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be ranked so high in the Elite 10, right? So you can't just kind of go one-on-one with them and expect to like come out of there like unscathed, or let alone like win, right? That's not to say that characters can't necessarily beat them, but it's very clear that even someone like Kuga, the 8th seed, needs the help of Mimisaka to beat the 1st seed, right? To beat Tsukasa. So for me, I understand that Mimisaka's trace is valuable for that. I get it. My issue is that the placement of sort of Mimisaka's development, like there are two problems that I have with it, right? The fact that the mangaka decides to place Mimisaka's sort of like development after his match with Soma, and sort of like his conversation with Takumi, right? You would expect that development would have sort of appeared already. You'd have expected that Mimisaka would appear. There'd be a dish, right? Something like that, and that doesn't happen. And I feel like it doesn't happen because the mangaka decided to place his development in a stage that wasn't really necessarily fit for it, right? Because like one thing that I do agree with, like with some people, is that like he needs to use the trace to help Kuga, right? Like his own dish wouldn't necessarily help Kuga, right? Because like he'd have to focus on that dish. He'd have to make sure that it was something that was able to beat the Elite 10 and things of that nature. So the trace allows him to like sort of focus both on helping Kuga and to just create a dish that can at least try like somewhat compete with the Elite 10's 5th seed's dish, right? The problem is that it was very clear from his match with Soma that, oh, okay, I've learned that I kind of really need to start creating my own dishes. I have to be my own chef. And the problem with the trace is that the trace doesn't represent that. If anything, the trace is clearly a representation of the exact opposite of what I would like to sort of consider to be character development. It's like, like again, like I said in my last video, like if you're a chef, like, and you're moving up, the most important thing is to have specialties, is to be thinking outside of the box, is to sort of pop, right? Otherwise, you're going to be a line cook or even like a sous chef, like for the rest of your culinary life, right? Like I've seen like a lot of cooking shows. I've seen a lot of cooking documentaries. I love cooking. Like I know people that cook and stuff like that, and I understand like that industry is all about who's eye popping, who has the sort of forward-thinking vision in terms of their dishes, in terms of their specialties and things of that nature. So the fact that Mimisaka is continuously sort of like tracing other dishes whenever he's being presented to us is a problem for his development, because it's like he's working backwards, right? It's like, oh, well, when are we ever going to see a dish for Mimisaka that is truly his own dish, right? That isn't just based on a copy of someone else's dish. We need to see more character development from Mimisaka, and I think the fact that the mangaka decided to develop his trace as opposed to right now, as opposed to developing his own like sort of culinary sort of vision as a chef prior to the Regiment de Cuisine, that to me was a disservice to Mimisaka's character. Okay, so it's not that I have a problem with him using the trace in the Regiment de Cuisine necessarily. The problem that I have is that the mangaka seems to have dropped the ball in terms of his character development by waiting to really reintroduce him in an important match to be able to serve his own dish, right, until now. It's just very late, and it just seems like, oh, for him to sort of be thinking about what Soma and Takumi have done, maybe he has developed off-screen or something like that, but off-screen doesn't help us as viewers, as readers. We need to see that development on-screen. We need to see that in the pages. So that's all I'm going to say about Mimisaka and his development, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So if you want to have a discussion with me about that in the comment section below, feel free to do that. Like, I have no problem talking with people, coming to different resolutions and different agreements and things of that nature. People have changed my mind about things, right? And some people haven't. Right? That's just the nature of arguments and the nature of talking about these things. So feel free to do that. I will say that the comedy was pretty funny. The one thing that I do sort of appreciate about Shokugeki no Soma is that when the comedy does appear, it's usually really on point and it's really funny, and like I appreciate it. Like in Mimisaka's bit, and he's sort of going, doing his trace, like image training, and he's doing all of the other Elite 10 chefs, and it's just funny stuff, like, especially when he's doing Rindo. Like, and, you know, because Rindo's, like, really, like, hyper, you know, a lot of energy, very excited about cooking and eating and all that stuff. Like, that stuff was, like, that was really funny, like, doing Tsukasa and, like, his, like, crazy, like, tie flip and stuff like that. You know, just that, like, I like that. I like the comedy. I like comedy in my shonen manga. And if there's, like, if there isn't any comedy in the shonen manga, then it's just boring. You know what I mean? Like, even Hunter x Hunter has a bit of comedy, right? Like it needs it. Even though that's a very serious sort of shonen, later on in the series, like, it still has those comedic bits and those sort of, like, funny moments where you're like, like, this is nice. Like, I can sort of, you know, relax a little bit and laugh and have a good time. I appreciated that bit. That was funny as hell. Like, it merely made me laugh. So I like that. And, like, the fact that, like, Saito's sort of trying to, like, maintain his Bushido code, but his fellow Elite 10 members are like, dude, like, stop, like, playing. Stop playing yourself. Like, it's very clear that, like, you do this, like, not necessarily all the time, but you do it, you know, quite a bit. So, like, stop lying, stop playing, stop fronting, and just, like, you know, admit that, like, Mimisaka's got you to a T. So, I love that. I thought that was really funny. It was good stuff. One last thing that I want to say, in terms of the sort of the chapter, is the bit where, like, right, like, I hate, like, this is something that, like, and this is just not, like, necessarily an analysis necessarily. This is just something that I'm, like, kind of annoyed about. You know, like, the way that just these chapters tend to end. But, like, I will say that, like, like, it's chapter 225, right? So at this point, like, I know that, like, cliffhangers are going to be a thing in Shokugeki no Soma until the end of the manga, right? I get that. And I would say that, like, I just think that, like, if you're going to do a cliffhanger like the one, for this for this chapter, it should just be better. Like, I don't know what that bowl is. Like, it doesn't look like any, like, it looks like a regular bowl. Like, why should I care about a regular bowl? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, you know, show me an ingredient. Show me, like, you know, sushi, cooking tool, right? Or forming tool or whatever. That's interesting. That, like, maybe I've never seen before. That maybe I don't know about. Because, like, I'm not super knowledgeable about sushi. I know a decent amount about sushi, but I'm not like, oh my goodness, like, you know, 3-star, like, sushi stuff or anything like that. But just like that, it seemed kind of lazy. It kind of bothered me. And so, like, I'm not necessarily bothered about cliffhangers. It's just, like, the cliffhanger should be interesting to where it's like, I gotta see this next chapter. You know, like, and this was sort of like, okay, he's holding a bowl. Like, why should I care about a bowl? You know, stuff like that. You know, just saying, whatever. You know, like, one cliffhanger I sort of remember that really sort of got me excited, was during an autumn election where Soma had, you know, like, his sort of, like, broth, and he had the, like, sort of pot that he was holding onto. That was interesting because it was, like, you know, clearly something was boiling in the pot. I didn't necessarily know what it was, but I knew that it somehow had to complement that particular dish, which didn't seem like a dish that would, you know what I mean, like, need, like, a sauce or anything like that. But that was interesting. That was a way to sort of make me think, like, okay, what could he be cooking in that pot? But this bowl, I'm like, what? I don't even know what's in the bowl. It just looks like a regular bowl. That just bothered me. You know, so cliffhangers, whatever. Like, they're going to keep coming. I understand that. But the quality of the cliffhanger should be better than just, like, showing, like, a panel of Mimisaka holding a bowl. Like, that's not enough. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just my review of Shokugeki no Soma, chapter 225. Like I said, you know, relatively, like, good chapter in terms of allowing sort of me to kind of go into my sort of issues with Mimisaka's character development, where it's placed within sort of the general story, and, you know, like, you know, some interesting bits in terms of the comedy were cool, and, like, I didn't necessarily, like, sort of connect with Saito, the fifth seat, and I didn't necessarily think that, like, the sort of bowl kind of cliffhanger was very good. So, you know, that's basically all I had to say about the chapter. So, like, comment, and subscribe if you want to be notified for more content. Find me and follow me on Twitter if you also want to be notified for more content, and if you just want to talk, you know, argue, whatever you want to call it, have a conversation about these chapters. And find me on Facebook if you also just want to have a conversation or whatever. Or if you just want to see sort of smaller clips of videos of me just sort of saying, like, oh, this is how I felt about this chapter, this is how I felt about that chapter. So, this is the Black Manga Critic, and I'm out.